I mean, the Chinese economy is definitely slowing down, or the momentum is slowing down, and that is hurting, obviously, spending.
The comparisons are bleak, the predictions dark, the economy set to plunge into a decline of historic proportions.
Just a few days from now, the world could change forever. And the first fallen domino would be from a $56 trillion collapse in the Chinese economy. Mortgage boycotts and frozen accounts are just the tip of the iceberg for the possible downfall of the Chinese Communist Party. Let's learn all about it. But first, make sure to subscribe to Market Magnets and click the notification bell to not miss any of our following videos. Social unrest is all over China. On May 23rd, protesters filled the Henan streets, while the ruling party sent thousands of police to stop them and control an already enraged nation. Thousands of Chinese homebuyers refused to pay their mortgages, worth over $350 billion, which could quickly spread like wildfire into an $18 trillion market that accounts for 40% of the Chinese GDP. Yet the wildfire doesn't stop. The boycott is spreading over 100 cities. All these homeowners banding together represents one of the most widespread acts of public defiance in several decades. Losing control of this economic disaster is something that the CCP cannot afford. The last time people massively defied the regime was in 1989. The CCP mobilized over 200,000 troops to shut off protesters at Tiananmen Square, where thousands of people were killed. Imagine for a moment that in a few days, the CCP could take a fall of about $18 trillion in their real estate sector if this social uproar continues. These numbers aren't just cold estimates on a spreadsheet, but thousands of Chinese families' dreams. For an 11th straight month, housing prices are falling. Xi Jinping is losing control of his party in the middle of a burst bubble. Leaked documents show internal struggle in the regime. The mortgage boycotts already provoked 5 banks to go bankrupt, which could easily spread to 5 more until it reaches the entire collapse of a $56 trillion banking system. Now, how can this happen? For starters, the Chinese banking system works with fractional reserves. If somebody deposits $1,000, the bank can only hold 10% in reserve, loaning the 90% left so that they can receive a profit and interest for that loan. In a bigger scenario, that means that out of $56 trillion currently in the banking system, only 10% is available. So yeah, only $5 trillion is real money. The 90% rest is used to make loans. When one person asks for that 90% as a loan and goes to spend it on a car, the guy who sold the car deposits the money back into a savings account, allowing the bank another 90% to loan over and over again, leveraging on the classic monetary multiplier effect. If panic spreads, when customers begin to withdraw all money at once, the system will collapse, since the funds will be elsewhere in unpayable loans. What started with a scandal of 400,000 Chinese accounts frozen quickly began to spread into over $350 billion in mortgage boycotts, and the dominoes are starting to fall. The first domino was in April 2022, when 4 rural banks in the landlocked province of Henan announced the freezing of $6 billion in several bank accounts. They were part of a complex scam that lasted over a decade, and when the government found out, they froze up all the accounts due to illegal financial activity. The banks did their best to hide this. First, they said the frozen accounts were due to an online update. Still, as the days went by, savers realized they couldn't access their money, so it only took one protest and a few cameras to make that Henan bank scam a national and global scandal, bringing many red flags among the 1.4 billion Chinese watching at home. And the second domino starts with 2 words: real estate. A market that, since 2008, has propelled the Chinese economy, and now it can't stop them from falling. For many years, authorities preferred its citizens to invest in their own homes instead of investing in the volatile stock market of Shanghai, a measure that pushed the real estate market exponentially to make sprawling and impressive cities full of skyscrapers that made headlines worldwide. Not so long ago, China was a country looking to cement itself as the #1 economy in the upcoming decades. Consumers receive no interest from bank deposits, and it's a nightmare to move money across its border because of strict capital controls. So the Chinese officials deliberately leave the vast population with one option: to pour their savings into the housing market. You can look at their stats and realize why the homeownership rate in China averaged 89% from 2013 until 2018. Their lowest point? 89% in 2018. Homeownership is a must in Chinese society, and the current undeveloped projects hit hard on Chinese families. Real estate developers are a crucial piece of this puzzle, since they are responsible for a massive-scale Ponzi scheme. Due to a homeownership fever in China, you can pre-sale a project without the need to finish it to charge people for their future homes. And since in the Chinese society, one of their priorities is owning one, people would leave their entire savings or even spend over 24 times their annual salary just to get an insane mortgage for an inexistent unit. So developers would try to pre-sell as many units as possible once they got that pre-sale money coming in via mortgage payments. They channeled it to new projects only to restart the scheme and get another batch of pre-sell units, so they could get more mortgages by selling soon-to-become dreams. Eventually, people discovered the projects were late in their deadlines. As a domino effect, homeowners stopped paying for their undelivered homes. The pre-sale market suddenly dropped, effectively cutting developers new money to keep the $356 billion scheme going. Without that money, they couldn't finish the projects. It was at that moment that the mortgage boycott started. Developers don't have enough cash flow to finish the promised projects or even start new ones. Homeowners' trust is slowly dying with the government stability. These people making the pre-sales weren't your everyday Joes. They were 8 of the biggest Chinese firms in the world. Giants like Evergrande, Shimayao, Sunac, and Country Garden are a part of a giant $360 billion Ponzi scheme. People started to second-guess those mortgage payments with so many missing deadlines. So they petitioned local governments, stating that the homeowners could default their mortgages if Evergrande didn't resume construction within 3 months. Evergrande was making $75 billion of annual revenue before the first boycotts. The petition to stop payments started in Henan and quickly spread throughout the nearby provinces, effectively reaching over 300 projects in 100 cities, cutting the Evergrande leverage scheme for good. The government is afraid that the same domino effect can happen with those savings accounts. If the real estate crisis ever spills over to other sectors, this could ripple overseas. It wouldn't be the first time China has produced a global collapse. We are witnessing a throwback of the 2008 recession while the CCP tries its best to ignore the homeowners' outrage in the best way it can by censoring it. Time and time again, authorities are deleting social media images and videos of protests, even forbidding several foreign media on the internet. They are especially targeting videos with solid evidence and demonstrations against predatory practices of Chinese developers and lenders. Things are not looking good in the future. According to several estimates, China will have the slowest growth in decades. Their factories are selling less globally, consumers are spending less, and young unemployment has reached record high levels. The party's stability is in danger, and they have too many fronts to cover to add another problem to the table. The current health crisis with travel restrictions further frustrate their citizens. The Taiwan situation with the US rivalry, and the 6th consecutive month of foreign panic sellouts of Chinese $20 trillion bond market. Social stability is crucial ahead of the 20th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party to show the outside world a strong union later this year, and Xi Jinping's upcoming elections. To appease protesters and contain the crisis, regulators and local governments have made efforts to reassure critics that developers will complete projects. Yet, we are only a couple of days before finding out if everything finally collapses. Can the Chinese Communist Party resist so much international and domestic pressure? Or are we seeing the first free fall domino into a worldwide economic depression? Tell us in the comments.